Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 49ers' really bad loss to the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game. We're also going to talk a little bit about the 49ers season as a whole and where the 49ers can look moving forward and some of the changes that might be coming up. There is a lot to talk about, and this might not be the video that a lot of you expect, but let's jump right in. Alrighty guys, so with this video, I'm not gonna edit this video much. We're just gonna get into it. I'm just gonna give you my thoughts fresh on this championship day Sunday in the NFL. You look at the 49ers, of course, we lost 31-7 to the Philadelphia Eagles, and when you look at this game, we all know the biggest play of the game was Brock Purdy getting hurt. Not only that, of course, there was a fumble on the play too, but the big story was Purdy getting hurt. And then just when you think things couldn't get any worse, the backup quarterback, Josh Johnson, doesn't look good at all, and then he gets hurt, and then Purdy has to come back in and basically try and play quarterback with an injury that I believe Adam Schefter tweeted out saying that it's typically it could be around a 6-week injury, and that's the quarterback that we have to use. Now, what I do want to say first and foremost is, before we get into a lot more kind of in-depth talk, is the fact that congrats to the Philadelphia Eagles. They're a fantastic team, and they played really well all year long. They're just loaded with talent all across the board. So I think that, I mean, who knows what could have happened if Purdy didn't get hurt, if he could have played like just a regular game, but that I guess we'll really never know. Now, the other thing that you want to talk about in this game too is really just the discipline of the 49ers, and I think some of the calls were warranted by the officials. You could argue that they were skewed in favor of the Eagles. Some of the calls, they're just NFL calls that really at no point during the game was. There were some times where, like, let's say the roughing the kicker on the punt, I was like, oh, I don't know, but was the game already kind of out of hand at that point? To me, the other huge play in this game was Josh Johnson fumbling the ball. It was 14-7. We were kind of moving the ball. There was a minute something change left in the first half. We had 3 timeouts, and maybe you get some points before halftime and you start the second half with the ball, but it just really wasn't our day, and I think it's just a bad luck thing. And maybe this year, for whatever reason, the football gods were not shining down on the 49ers. But what I do want to say is that, yeah, for whatever reason this year, I'm just not as devastated by this loss as previous years. I think because at multiple times during this year, I had I hadn't thrown in the towel, but I was just like, oh my God, what a devastating injury. And it's, of course, to all of our quarterbacks. You look back to week 2 and Trey Lance with the really bad ankle injury, and that was awful. And then you're thinking, man, now what? And then Jimmy G comes in, plays good in that game, and then plays pretty okay-ish the next until he got hurt against the Miami Dolphins. And now all of a sudden we're starting this rookie Mr. Irrelevant, and then he's playing good, and which is just a great story. And we go on this 12-game win streak, essentially. We were 3-7. We just lost a bad game to Kansas City, and I did a video on that. I ranted about that, and this one's definitely not going to be as intense, but it's just at the end of the day, you look down and it's like we won 12 games in a row. And so for me, look, I'm really proud of how the team responded. When you lose multiple quarterbacks, the team really rallied around the quarterbacks that were there, and we had injuries all across the team, just like every other team has, but I don't think many teams can say they lost basically 3 or 4 quarterbacks in a season. But ultimately, it's such a bummer, and there are so many great moments from this season, like just thinking about how dominant the defense was, thinking of so many great plays and players really breaking out, like Brandon Ayuk having a really great season, Talanoa Hufanga having a great season. And I think something that really resonates with me is the fact that the 49ers we have a lot of good players. Some of them are definitely getting a little bit older, but we still have a lot of good young players. And the front office and, John Lynch and Adam Peters, these guys have shown the ability to be able to find talent in the draft. Even though we don't have any high draft picks this coming off season, we do have a lot of draft picks. And, sometimes when it comes to the draft, of course, you'd love a bunch of first rounders, second rounders, what have you. But when it gets a little bit later, sometimes, just getting some quantity there, you're bound to hit on a few of those guys. But something that I am seeing across 49ers Twitter, and I think, a lot of this is based off emotion, that people are, very upset about how the game went and what happened. But for me, look, I'm not saying that Kyle Shanahan is perfect by any means, but the Niners have been in 3 of the last 4 NFC Championship games. Of course, one of them we won, and then you look at the last couple, and I think that he is a really, really good coach. Again, is he perfect? No, but who else are you going to bring in? Sean Payton Sean Payton, he did win 1 Super Bowl, but he had an all-time quarterback with Drew Brees, and then they had a lot of losses in the playoffs themselves, so it's not like he's perfect by any means. And so I think that the 49ers, the big question this offseason is going to be, which guys can you bring back in terms of players? Because we do have a number of notable free agents. And then also what happens with DeMeco Ryans. I think it's fairly safe to assume that he will get a head coaching job somewhere. Rumors are Houston or Denver. And then how do we replace a guy like DeMeco Ryans? To me, I think the 49ers might go the veteran defensive coordinator route. But could they potentially look for some young up-and-coming guy too? I think this Niners defensive coordinator job would be one that a lot of guys would be really wanting this job, because you just look at the talent. There's all pro players on each level of the defense and a lot of other fantastic players around there. But I look back on this season, and initially it was pretty tough going. We had some head scratching games. That Denver game was awful. Week 1 in the rain against Chicago, not great by any means. The Atlanta game was just confusing about how bad we looked. Then we lose to Kansas City. And then we just go on this kind of magical run. And a lot of it was sparked by the trade for Christian McCaffrey. And he is a phenomenal player. And I'm glad that he's under contract for the next 2 years. I'll be excited to see what Kyle Shanahan can dial up when it comes to next offseason, when you have Trey Lance coming back healthy, and then you have McCaffrey and Debo and Ayuk and all these guys, of course, that we have. And that's something that I think really gives me hope, is the fact that we just have so many great players. There is room for improvement, absolutely. I think that we can definitely improve a little bit on the offensive line, maybe a little bit on the defensive line at the edge position. Some guys who I thought would step up didn't. But overall, at the end of the day, I think that a team that faces as much adversity as the 49ers did with regards to not only losing team captains. There was at one point, was it the Atlanta game, I think, where I think we only had one team captain who was actually available to play. And we have 6-7 team captains, and so many guys were out hurt for so much of the year. And I don't like to use the injury excuse, and ultimately it's just, but there are some things when it comes to going through 3-4 quarterbacks that it's just come on now. It's But I understand why maybe people are frustrated with Shanahan. It's we have a really, really good team here in San Francisco. And, this is a franchise that typically, of course, we always would pride ourselves on winning Super Bowls. And if you don't win Super Bowls, then, maybe are you good enough? And personally, I still do believe that we are good enough. I'd like to have seen what a guy like Trey Lance could have done developing through the season. There's a lot of different things at play there. And I think the 49ers do ultimately have a bright future. And again, that's another reason why maybe I'm not as devastated about this loss as I perhaps could have been. I see a lot of great young players. I still have a very high opinion of a guy like Trey Lance, but even Brock Purdy showed a lot of really, really good things for us. And I think he'll have another offseason to get into the system and whatnot. And we have good young players here, a lot of talent. But yeah, of course, I'm really, really bummed out about the loss to Philadelphia. I think if it was a heartbreaker, kind of like how Cincinnati lost to Kansas City, then I would be more devastated. But I think once Purdy got hurt and it was clear he wasn't coming back in, my expectations for the game went somewhat out the window. I still tried to keep some positivity, and Christian McCaffrey had that fantastic touchdown run, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough, and we had some big mistakes too. And a lot of the mistakes we kind of have to blame ourselves, where I get the officials called a lot more on us than Philadelphia, but I think that we definitely have some things to clean up. Of course, I like players who are really aggressive on defense, but sometimes you maybe have to be able to harness that and unleash that in the right moments, and to avoid big penalties. But overall, what I can say is that, look, I'm a really, really proud 49er fan. I love being a fan of this team. I'm a guy who supports Kyle Shanahan as far, that I look at the track record. I've seen what the Niners have looked like with other coaches in terms of like Chip Kelly and Jim Tom Sula and, other coaches like Mike Nolan, Dennis Erickson. So I think when you do have a good coach, I think you should hold on to him. I still believe the Niners are going to field a really good defense next year. And I think the offense could be really, really special. I mean, look at what the offense was doing with Brock Purdy down the stretch. I mean, averaging over 30 points a game. The yards were super impressive. We were getting big plays. This is what the offense is supposed to look like. And I think something that maybe the 49ers front office, and this could be a fair criticism of them, and potentially Shanahan too, is that maybe we believed in a guy like Garoppolo for too long. I think it's fair to say that Garoppolo is far from perfect, although statistically this year, not bad, but you look at Brock Purdy and the offense just took a leap forward, and it's like, is this what the Kyle Shanahan offense is supposed to look like? And I think it is. We also have a lot of young players who got a lot of experience this year, and I think who are going to take a big step. I think some players, they might not take the step that, let's say, a guy like Talanoa Hufanga took, but they'll take steps and they'll get better. They've played a lot of games this year. I mean, you think about it, they played anyone who played all the games this year, they essentially played 20 games this year when you look at the 17-game regular season and 3 playoff games. So I think this will really benefit the team moving forward. So I'm feeling pretty good about the team. And the one bummer is, you'd love to have some high draft picks, but I do think the Niners have shown an ability to find some key players later in the draft. And of course, there's also free agency, and there's a lot of questions there. And there are questions coming up, and I'm sure we'll be able to hopefully answer those pretty soon. I will be doing a bunch of videos on free agency, on the draft. One of my favorite times of the year is the NFL draft, on coaching moves with the 49ers, maybe some significant ones with other teams. But overall, really disappointed. Obviously that we lost, and it was just, but it kind of almost didn't seem like a fair fight. But, again, congrats to the Eagles for moving on to the Super Bowl. Again, they have a really good team, and hopefully next year it will be us who is going to be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. I think this is a team that is built to last for the foreseeable future. I'm definitely not going to be someone who's on the fire Kyle Shanahan bandwagon, and that's something that I'll probably be sticking with all offseason. I just can't imagine anything different. And of course, I'm really excited to see the development of Trey Lance, of Brock Purdy, and I think that we will keep both of those guys, but we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys like my genuine thoughts. I was able to think about a lot of this stuff too while I was streaming the Chiefs and Bengals game, and super devastated that whenever you get this close, you're like, just a couple of wins away. But I think when the injury happened, I was kind of like, damn, not our game, not our season. But overall, hopefully this team bounces back. This team has shown so much resiliency, overcoming adversity, and I have a lot of faith in the leadership of the team and moving forward. And that's just my opinion, but I want to say thank you guys so much for all season long, for being there, watching the videos, attending the streams. The channel itself has grown significantly from the start of the season to now, and it really blows my mind. And I will, of course, be doing all this all again next year. It's going to be under very different, a few different circumstances, and I will explain that in a future video. But I will be doing the games, live stream the games and all that good stuff. And I can't wait to do it all over again with all of you guys. And of course, any new people that we meet, that'll be great. But just to thank you for all the support in the entire year. Whether it was monetarily, whether it was just attending the streams, chatting, whatever the case may be, it really makes watching games a lot more fun. So I just want to say a huge shout out to and thank you for all the support to you guys. And yeah, again, super devastated by the Niners, but we will be back. And yeah, thank you so much again. And before I head out, I'm going to say 2 things. The butt counts. I'm going to catch you guys on the flip side. Go frickin' Niners, baby.